All right, welcome back. The title of our talk today is Spiritual Resilience in Times of Crisis. And Dale, if you can bring up the slides for me. All right, let's see if I can control it. Oh, hold on 1 second. Give us 1 second. Stand by. We're going to do a restart. Awesome. So, today we're going to talk about spiritual resilience in times of crisis. And one of the things that I remembered was that the first video that we ever did when we started recording videos was somewhat on this topic. So if you put the slide up, when I was looking to see what he said and who it was I can't see that back screen. Stephen Morrison. That was in January of 2020. That's the first time we did a recording of one of our services and put it up to YouTube. And the title of his presentation for us that day, sorry to the people on Zoom, the title of his presentation for us that day was Spiritual Workout for Politics. I don't know if you guys remember, Spiritual Workout for Politics. But there's something that I just wanted to point out, two things of celebration for us as a community before we really get started. When I was looking to see what that first video was, I noticed that we had 168 videos on our YouTube from over the past 4 years, and I thought that was pretty awesome that we've been able to develop that much content and record it over the past 4 years. And then this is just something else that's about some of our progress and activity over the past 4 years. On the other side there, you guys remember back in October of last year when we first did the 8th principle, and I told you how many congregations had adopted the 8th principle at that time. At that time, it was 223 congregations had adopted the 8th principle, and as of 2 weeks ago, it says, someone wrote in on the Facebook page and said, I'm doing a service like we had done, and they'd like to know what the current count is. And that post there says, we just got an announcement. It doesn't say from UUFLB, but we were number 283. So now 283 congregations, plus at the bottom of that post, there's another church that wrote in and said, we adopted it on January or June, such and such, so 284. So the number has gone up from 223 to 284. So I thought that was just something very cool that I would share with everybody. So is everybody here familiar with the myth of Sisyphus? So just in brief recap, if you're not familiar, he was rumored to be one of the smartest, one of the brightest. He was kind of a trickster, and he got in trouble for tricking, I forget which one of the gods. If my laptop had remained plugged in and I hadn't lost everything because it died on me. So resilience, right? We're doing spiritual resilience. So we're going to see how resilient I am, because I had this whole plan of how I was going to try to approach the service today. And I had redundancy. I had two methods, and it's not working. But anyway, Sisyphus, he was condemned to push a giant boulder up a hill. And the trick of his curse was when he got the boulder to the top of the hill, it would roll back down. And that was his existence. Every day he would wake up and he would push the boulder to the top of the hill, it would roll back down, and that's what he was supposed to have to do for eternity. And the reason I bring that to us is because in our spiritual journey, we are Sisyphus. Every day we're going to have this amazing accomplishment, and the next day we're going to have to start over and face something of a similar nature again. And I just thought that was a good image to bring to everybody. Before we get here, going back to Stephen brought us a couple of points that I want to remind us of. And the first one was that when we're in a situation, that situation is like making a smoothie. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Is this sounding familiar to anybody? Good, so I get to tell it almost like it's my own. So he said in any situation, especially a really big, historically, a really large situation, it's like making a smoothie. And he told it to us this way. I was listening to this at 4 a.m. so I could tell this to you guys this morning. So he said he's in his kitchen. He has these beautiful bananas, these perfect strawberries, couple melons, whatever else you might like in your smoothie, all of these perfect ingredients, and they look amazing. And then he puts them into his blender, and he hits the button. And when it's about halfway done, his doorbell rang. And he walked away and went and answered the doorbell. And so when he comes back, he says that's us in most instances of time in any situation. When you come back and you look at the smoothie, he said it's a disgusting mess. It's mushy, half banana. Everything is all jawbled together. There's destruction. There's grossness. And he said that's the middle of the process. And then he reminded us that you can continue to press the button and let that process go throughout its entirety, and then you have a beautiful, uniform, homogeneous mixture that pours out with a little thickness to it, and it actually looks appetizing, and you have a beautiful smoothie. And so he reminded us that that's how any situation is because of time and our perspective. At any point when we look at the situation, the only thing we can see is the middle of the process, because in recorded history, there's some disputes as to what that is and how long that is, but it's definitely thousands and thousands of years. And with a lifespan of 70 to 100 plus years, thousands of years doesn't allow you to see the whole process of the smoothie being made. You only get to see a snapshot of the smoothie. And many times we come in the middle when everything looks like destruction and feels like a mess. And so what do we do when we have to live in the middle of the destruction and the mess? The first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that our beliefs matter. The things that we think matter. And why is that? You cannot teach somebody something that you do not know. You cannot example for somebody something that you do not do. Right? And so here in this community, we have our 8 principles that we affirm and promote, and we have to develop what we'll call positive habits. That's why I was intending for us to go through month by month each of these to develop some positive habits, because our beliefs matter, and when we show up and we can only example for somebody, teach somebody, or do for somebody things that we actually do for ourselves on the regular basis. We can't be a bigger container than ourselves. Last week, unrelated to anything that I'm talking about and going off of the cuff, one of my favorite movies is John Wick, right? I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with John Wick. It has one of the greatest actors of our time as its lead, Keanu Reeves. People rave about his ability to deliver the lines because they're stellar. But he is one of the best action actors ever. And in John Wick 4, there's this amazing scene where he goes to see the Marquis, something, which is French, and I will butcher French, so I won't do it. But he goes to see the Marquis, and it isn't John Wick, it's another character. But the point is, the Marquis says, "My father always taught me that how you do anything is how you do everything." And that just stuck with me all this week. How you do anything is how you do everything. Because again, if you're a chain, you, this person that's sitting here looking at me, if you're a chain, you can't be any stronger than your weakest link. And because you're the chain, you are your weakest link. And you can't be any stronger than your weakest link. Can't be any bigger than our container. We can't teach something that we don't know, and we definitely can't example something that we don't do. And this is another one that I love. It says, you can't learn how to ride a bike in a book. That's our spirituality. We can't learn how to be spiritual practitioners in a book. It's like riding a bike. I don't care what you read about riding a bike, until you get on that thing with no training wheels, you haven't had the experience. The next thing that we have to do, and I'm so proud of our community right now, is you have to show up. It's like 90% of the thing is showing up. And so we've had an example with the situation with our board president, and I've witnessed through my little keyboard of Peeping Tom in Henderson, Nevada, I've witnessed reports of people showing up, including I keep staring into the lovely eyes of Linda, and that's because of the wonderfulness of Mike showing up. Am I correct on that? And that he was the way that you got here today. And have you seen Oakley every day this week? She's seen Oakley every day this week. So the next thing is, one, we have to have a container. We got to continue to increase the size of our container, and then our container has to show up. That's what's important. And then the next thing we have to do, I wish this was like a crazy cool video, but I wasn't that talented. But we have to continue to tap into and grow our higher selves. And so I want you to think of it like this, and I was just curious, and this may be really nerdy, and you might not find any value in it, but I'm going to share it anyway. You are one, fully contained one, and there's approximately 8 billion people, right? And so I said, what's the metaphor? How am I going to create this visual? So you are a drop of water. And so I'm really into artificial intelligence. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the volume of a drop of water? And it gave me a whole long answer of, well, there's a lot of variables as to determine what the volume of a drop of water, and then we came on the standard variable that is going to be 0.5 milliliters is the standard volume of a drop of water. So I said, now we have 0.5 milliliters as the standard volume of a drop of water. That represents each of us. I said, now so take that and put that into a recognizable body of water, and what would that look like if there were 8 billion drops of water in the container? And I want you to take a moment and just think, body of water, any body of water that you can think of, 8 billion of us, how big does that body of water look like if a drop of water is 5 milliliters? There is no prize, there's also no grade, so there's no wrong answer. Anybody have an idea how big the container might be that they want to share? When you put all of us together as a drop of water? No guesses? Oh, I should have brought a lottery ticket or something to give away. I'll take the suspense away. It's about, okay, hold on. Woo, we got a taker. Go, Mike.
400 million liters.
Well, you did the math, but what size does that, what does that look like? All the oceans. We got all the oceans. That's about how many?
A little more than 1 million gallons.
And so what do you think that?
More than 10 million.
We got all the oceans and we got gallons. I need a body of water. Give me a container. Tell me what you think that looks like. About the volume of this sanctuary. So the way that ChatGPT answered the question, it says 1/16 of the volume of an Olympic pool, or the volume of a medium-sized community pool, which I think this sanctuary would be about a medium-sized community pool. That's an engineer for you. He has a special kind of mind. Very impressive, because I would have never gotten there. I actually thought it was going to be like something like Lake Tahoe, or I thought it was going to be I was looking, because then I was going to get a picture of it, and then we were going to have this wonderful graphic. There's no picture of a 16% filled Olympic swimming pool that's sexy, so I couldn't give you that. But then I wanted to take it a little bit further. If that's what it would represent if every person was a drop, and we just use water as the example of what's out there. One swimming pool are all the people that are here right now. And so in terms of energy and stuff and volume, there's so much more, so much more. But I don't know if you guys caught it, but I'm going to give it to you again so you're going to get to see it. This is why the water thing and the drop is important. I want you to conceptually think about it, because I think it's cool. Whatever all that stuff, the ancestors, the future, the potential possibilities of all the oceans, of all the lakes, of the clouds, there's a lot of water here. Ooh, did you guys see? They just discovered there's a subterranean ocean that's 7 times the size of all the surface water. Did you see that? 7 times the size of all the surface water, there's another subterranean ocean. So now what is the possibility of a drop? And what is the power of a drop? So watch that first video that we had and watch what a drop can do. If you have, some of us can conceive and believe in that we came from a perfect oneness. It was just a perfect oneness. And then what does one drop of something that's different do? Watch this little graphic and see what I'm talking about. Up. Can you see if you can make that play for me, Dale? One more time. Oh, now look what this drop does. We have a bunch of clear liquid, and then we have a drop of something that's not clear. It has a great impact, and at the end, it completely takes over. I don't know why it's going so slow. It's messing up my big reveal. There it is. And what I think of when I see that last part is we have to be, as spiritual practitioners, we have to be very mindful of how we keep our container, our drop, because that last thing is like a mob mentality. The drop is contagious. It happens at concerts. It happens in religious gatherings. You feel what's around you. You get hyped up. You get excited. And in the mob mentality concept, you can catch on to this negative vibe and end up joining thousands of other people doing something that you don't agree with, but you were just caught up, because that's how the drop theory works. So I want you to keep that drop theory with you as you move forward. I'm going to get you guys home by dinner, and we already have lunch, so you guys don't have to worry anything about time or anything like that. And so, hi Siri.
To who?
Go away. Off.
Okay, canceled.
It's a brand new world. When I was a little kid, I used to watch the Jetsons, and I trip out because I'm living in the Jetsons. Like, food comes out of the microwave. I go on these long escalators that go for forever at the airport. I have ChatGPT telling me questions like how much volume is in a ocean of people or a pool of people. I wanted to leave you guys with some practical things that you could do in being spiritual growth mechanisms. So, are any of you familiar with Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now? A few. So Eckhart Tolle's teachings in The Power of Now focus on the importance of living in the present moment to achieve spiritual enlightenment and emotional peace. And here are just some of the main points. Living in the present. And I just want to share this about what is the present, because I thought this was a great understanding and visualization. Right now, here in this room, this is the present. When I think about 2 years ago, how Carol Cole's Kansas City Chiefs beat my Philadelphia Eagles, it causes me a little bit of depression. These are facts. And that's not now. That's in the past. So what I want you to take away from that is not that the Chiefs beat the Eagles, because it shouldn't have happened, but when you go into the past, the feeling that you get is depression. So if you're feeling depression, you can ask yourself the question, where am I? Where is my thought? Why am I feeling depressed? Because in the now, there is no depression. But if I go back to those Eagles, and I'll tell you what's even more depressing is the very next year, the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl again on the exact same play that they beat my Eagles with, so the next team wasn't even smart enough to figure out how to not let them do it so that they, anyway. If you go into the future, right, I'll share this, I shared it a couple times. On St. Patty's Day, I had a flight, and I told you I was excited to go get some corned beef and cabbage, and that was in the future. That wasn't in the now. And I said it that way, that's my future. My flight got canceled. I didn't get home till 1 a.m. I didn't get home till the next day after St. Patty's Day, right? And so now, if I think about my flight today, I don't know what's for dinner, but some anxiety starts to come up. Anxiety about the future. So my tip with that is if you're in the future and you're feeling anxiety, same kind of mechanism. Where am I at? What am I doing? So how do you stay in the present? One of the most common things is focusing on the breath. Focusing on your breath. And anything that they call mindfulness, but one of the most powerful is focusing on the breath. And I really don't want to keep you guys here till dinner. So I'm just going to say one of the most powerful things that I've come across is this book, The Power of Now. It was the subject of a mental health group that I participated in for 3 years. And it became one of the most transformative set of tools that I have in maintaining myself in this ruckus journey, including all of the things that are going on. Some of the pushback to the protesters is very disturbing to me because now is not a safe space to actually articulate and to protest. And life is a cycle. My dad was talking to me this week and he said, if the Swifties were around when I was a kid, they all would have been at a Beatles concert. And I was like, huh. And ironically, if you ask, a lot of the Swifties' parents and or grandparents were at Beatles concerts. It's a cycle. And then I'm thinking about all these protests, the things that are going on at USC with regards to the commencement speech. And I wasn't around because I'm not as old as some people think I'm not. On the plane yesterday, I had on a Prince t-shirt, and the flight attendant told me I was too young to know anything about Prince, and that just made my day. But anyway, and she was only 41, so I was like, oh, I got you by 9 years, so I'm winning, yes. And I just lost my train of thought. Somebody tell me what I said right before I went into the Prince thing. Anybody? The Swifties and the Beatles. Where I was trying to go with that is these protests remind me of everything that I've witnessed and everything that I understand about what was going on in the Vietnam era, right? I've seen videos, I've watched documentaries, I wasn't there, but there's these two consciousnesses. So to bring it full circle, Steve Morrison, when he was here with us, he said, there's two consciousnesses. There's an old consciousness and there's a new consciousness. The old consciousness is like where you want to get back to. Somebody would say something like, make it great again, if that was where they were seeking to go. It's the old way, and there's something else that's new, and we're in the blender. We're in the time when they both exist at the same time, and we have to see half a banana and a bunch of smattered blueberries, and we have to keep in mind not to attach to that too closely, to focus on our breath. If you find yourself watching it or listening to it and you find yourself getting either depressed because you're thinking about things in the past related to the situation or anxious in the future, come back to the present. That's the encouragement, is to come back to the present and stay in the present. And then my last tip for you is everything is just like food, right? You can't go out and you can't eat 60 Haagen-Dazs bars and expect to be balanced and healthy. So if everything is in the same kind of way and mechanism, if we're talking about the news, it doesn't matter if you're a Fox News person, an NBC person, a CNBC person, an MSNBC person, a CNN person, doesn't matter what it is, if you eat 60 of them, you're not going to be in balance. And now we're talking about your spiritual routine and your spiritual practice. So now if you watch your news programs and you spend 5 hours on your news programs, did you balance that out with 5 hours of meditation, 5 hours of mindfulness, 5 hours of community engagement? It has to stay in balance or it gets out of balance. It's the beauty that Coltrane was able to see in the harmony of the notes. There's a math to it all. That's why I say it's food, because all food is it's delicious, but at the end of the day, it's X number of calcium, X number of fiber, X number of things. They all come together. They have a caloric intake. It's math. When you take it in, your body's going to burn so much, it's going to create a certain amount of waste, and it's just math. And there's balances, and if you're out of balance, it shows up in different ways. Everything is just math. That's what Coltrane was showing us. So I tried to weave a whole lot of things together for you guys today, and I had it even more tightly packed. So I hope that gives you some practical, applicable understanding of spiritual resilience. And when we think of this, can I get back on the, are we on? There we go. So when we think of Sisyphus, we have to envision him as happy. That's our responsibility in our container. We have to envision Sisyphus as happy so that we, as we continue to go through our daily incarnation of Sisyphus and our regular challenges, we continue to grow. We continue to emulate light into the darkness that we face. I just want to tell you one other thing. He said, Stephen told us in his talk 4 years ago that when you're encountering somebody you disagree with, whether it's politics, any idea, he said it's very important that you speak from the first person. So as an example, if you're talking about the border, since we're about to have some border visitors and we might have conversations about the things that we're seeing, when somebody says, I don't believe those persons should be here or come here or whatever, he said to talk about what you believe, and in these ways, maybe as a Unitarian Universalist. You might say, well, I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. No matter what they say, you say, well, my belief in the inherent dignity of every person means that I believe that they should have to have a path to citizenship. I also believe as an American citizen that immigration is important to our economy. But he said to speak from the first person, and no matter what you do, and this is where the muscle part and the workout part and the spiritual resilience part comes in, you can't be offended by what they say or how they show up. Because it's the churn. It's the churn of the blender. And your responsibility is to share how you feel, and that's where your impact ends, because you can't grab them, twist them around, pull them into your brain, and push them out and make them change. And what he said is you have to be spiritually mature enough to agree to disagree. And that was impactful as he was closing. You have to be spiritually mature enough to be able to engage, be willing to change if you get information that is going to change, and if the information doesn't change, to be mature enough to agree to disagree and to make space to move on so no other further injuries occur. Because we're in a space where there's lots to disagree about on all kinds of subjects, on all kinds of things, because the world just keeps getting bigger and more complex. So I hope you remember that beliefs matter, you have to show up, and you have to build your container. And with that, I say, may it be so.